Welcome back, everybody. This is the game development live stream. This is going to be a really, really fun talk today on a couple of fronts. First of all, we got Rick Neal here. Rick is a true veteran of the game industry. We can delve into anything that he's worked on, but it's also about what he's doing now, which I think is really interesting. Now, for the last several years now, it feels like the last 3 years-ish, we've all been talking about artificial intelligence in games and using AI to build games faster, build better games. It gets talked about a lot. You don't have a lot of real world examples of people actually putting this into practice. So one of the really compelling things that we're going to cover today is how Rick, in the studio that he has at Noctua, they are building AI pipelines. This is a real thing. They're using it to build games. And we're going to actually delve into that. It's not going to be hypothetical. It's real world examples. And I hope everyone actually gets to learn from this. I hope you get to apply it within your own studios, because making games is really freaking hard. And if you can find ways to accelerate it while delivering high quality and all the things that you care about building into the fun experience of the game, I think you've got to learn these tools. You literally cannot understand these tools and be successful in the future. There's just too much of a productivity enhancement. And ultimately, we're talking about the value of our time. Your time value goes up by being able to utilize AI. For people that don't know a lot about game development, you're also going to get a behind the scenes look in a lot of aspects of game development. Maybe you'll learn something like how hard it is to make a character in a game and how some of these newer tools can actually transform that. Okay, but without further ado, let me introduce Rick, and then we'll talk a little bit about the Q&A format today, and we'll even get a chance to look at some really interesting things. But Rick, before we dive into the current work that you're doing at Noctua, introduce yourself. What brought you to this point in time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling that I've been lucky to be able to be working in games since the early 90s. I got started at EA way back in the day, and they didn't call it IT then, they called it technical services. And it was only because I knew how to fix Macintoshes that I got a job at EA. And EA, I was employee number 197, and everybody did everything back then. So even though I was in technical services in charge of making the first ever simple mail transfer protocol email server, right? But then go work with the team and help them figure this out and everything. EA was very supportive of as you transition. So within 4 years, I was an assistant producer to a producer at EA. And then I got to work on Madden for 5 years, which was probably my claim to fame and what really taught me how real game making is made. Fast forward to now, I've worked at Microsoft, I've worked at Amazon, I've worked at Outfit 7, the Talking Tom guys. I've worked at, I've forgotten so many different names. I worked at this crazy ad company startup that invented the first ever watch this ad and get rewarded. And then Vungle saw that and said, well, let's just make it about video game ads. And they won the race. But we kind of invented those kind of things. So I've worked inside and outside of gaming. I've done business development from Xbox 360 launch to propping up ad networks. I've always vectored towards gamers and being a gamer. I still play games. And that's what got me here. When I joined the industry in the 90s, my parents were saying, why are you throwing away a perfectly good career and wasting your life with those guys? So it's a different world now. I think we're at the birth of indie development on the planet. We're going to look back now and say, this is when indie development really took off, because the opportunities for indies is amazing right now. And that's why we started Noctua Interactive, to take advantage of some of that. And for the right reasons of making the right games. So
I'm so glad you said that, because game making, games are the most important media category of our time. They're really how we tell stories now. And they're also how we have conversations.
Absolutely.
About media, about experiences. So certainly from a revenue standpoint, we know that it's $230 billion industry this year, I think is the latest number I heard. From a people standpoint, it's 3.5 billion people play games. So this should tell you something. This is the most important media we have. A couple of things that you pointed out, though, like about the importance of indies. Like, first of all, in many ways, I don't like this idea of like there's AAA studios, there's AA studios, there's indie studios, like all these categories. I feel like game making, for it to continue to be the most important media category of our time, really has to be for anybody. Like anybody could make a game. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about that in AI and things like that. So just a couple of things for the conversation today, and then I want to dive into Noctua and what you're doing and AI pipelines and all of that stuff. So first of all, this is a live conversation. You're all here, hopefully, because you're participating live. I know that many of you are probably watching this on replay. That's cool too. We love you, but come live next time for a couple of reasons. One is you get to ask questions and actually be part of this community and learn things. We've got a veteran here, Rick. I have a little background in the game industry myself, so like, why not show up and ask a question of legends like Rick, who have done so much in this industry and have real experiences to share with you. This is your chance to do that. You can do that by posting on X, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, all the places we're broadcasting live. But if you're watching this replay, we love you too. There's one other thing that you won't be able to get today if you're watching in replay, and that's the code that we're going to drop. A lot of you are here to get that code. We are doing the airdrop. And if you keep watching, we're going to let you know the code. You go over to our Discord, you enter it in, super simple. You only have a 2-minute window to do that, though. So this is just for the people watching live. All right, Rick, let's talk about some of the work you're doing. Tell us about Noctua. What's the mission, the vision behind the studio, and maybe tee it up for us. And then I think, Oscar, we have a little video we can watch to introduce Noctua, right?
Yeah. I'll Noctua Interactive. We started October 23. The best way to tell the story is the origin story. I moved to Oregon. I went to a meetup because that's what I do. I go to all the meetups, the tech meetups. And my friend introduced me to a guy, Nathan Stallman, who came up to me and said, "Hey, I just sold my third startup. I've been doing training and simulation for over 20 years. I've been writing books my entire life because I thought I wanted to be an author when I was in college. So I have all these books. And I thought I'll publish them on Amazon Prime. And when I retired and sold the last company, I thought, there's no way to get my game out. And I'm such a gamer that I thought it would be great to make my stories into games to see how users interact with the stories. Like you said, interactive storytelling. It's now gaming. It's where this is coming, right? Mm-hmm. And I told him flat out right then, I'm like, dude, take your money, go to the corner and burn it. And that will feel a lot better than trying to make a game. It's the hardest thing ever. Right. Yeah. So that was, and for a year and a half, he bugged me, and I sent him to GDC and introduced him to all of my friends and meet this CEO and meet that CEO and find out. So he met and did the research as a CEO and said, I still think it's a viable market because I see user behavior has changed and the big publishers are not going to notice that. And there's a huge opportunity for indie developers in the next 4 years to become a self-sustaining market that was never there before. And I'm like, that's really good observation. That's exactly what I see. So I put together an insanely talented team, guys I've worked with since the 90s, the Tiger Woods. And like, I could list the names, just go up on our website and you can see our pedigree. Pedigree doesn't matter as much as let's just get something built now. Right. So this insanely talented team, I said, I'm going to constrain you on your creativity by A, we only use Unreal. B, you only use blueprints. If you run into a problem and Blueprint can't do it, redesign, right? Because that's the rapid acceleration to getting things in. Buy all of your assets in the Fab Store because they're all available now, and build me my wow moment. Give me my gameplay loop, right? Yeah. Then on the parallel side, we'll use the new tools coming out, and I'm not going to say generative AI because they're just tools to me. And we'll figure out the art pipeline, because what has flipped is the 80-20. I think, John, you remember this. We would spend 80% of our resources building the tech on Madden, and then we'd spend 20% of our resources making the game fun. Yes. And that's been the formula still today in a lot of big companies. That's the formula. 80% is resources, engineering, back end, all that stuff that's not gaming. And then 20% is, and then we're supposed to be a game company. So let's flip that on its head. And how can we work 20% build the infrastructure and the blueprints and the game is running, the gameplay loop works. Then let's spend 80% of our time tuning. And guess what will happen? You'll make more hit games than ever before, right?
Yeah, and that's a change a lot of people don't fully appreciate about the industry too. Like once upon a time, it really was a much more technology-driven industry.
Oh my gosh.
Games had to discover new ways of doing things with the technology.
And you were constrained.
Yeah.
For instance, we were constrained on Madden to be, sorry, the renderer can't manage that many polygons, so your gameplay has to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Not your visual acuity, not your sound engine, not your load engine, not your memory handler, not all the other things that were technical. That has to be solid. But sorry, we can't have that many plays in the playbook. I can't have that many animations. I can't have that resolution of your gameplay is going to suffer because of the technology. And it's completely flipped on its head now. If you do constrain your team to an existing engine with already known workflows, and there is no limit to their creativity because they start at alpha. That's kind of our trick. We start at alpha.
Yeah,
all the features are done.
Works great. You have
and make it fun
to work on the fun factor. And if you're spending 80% of your effort on tech, you're not going to build a fun game. Not in today's market.
Right.
You're going to just spend too much money. You're going to run out of runway.
And you make sacrifices. On the game we made at Glue called Blood and Glory, my best engineer spent 7 months working on UI because there was no UI in Unity. And he had to build the whole thing from scratch. And he was not working on making the game fun. But you have to make that trade-off. Well, I need a UI for the game to work. So I guess best engineer is not going to make the game fun. He's going to make the UI work, right? And it worked, and we still had a hit, and things were good. But I just think back of like, how much better would that game have been if all of my best engineers were in that room making the game fun instead of concentrating on, I got to prop up the back end so it's stable, right? That's not game making. So
I love this idea where you've created the constraint around blueprints. So for people who are just not super familiar with Unreal Engine, it's essentially doing things using the user interface as opposed to going out and coding and building things by hand, which is going to be a huge constraint. One of the things that we built into our platform, Beamable, and I realized I dove right in because I was so excited to roll right into the conversation here. I didn't even introduce myself. So I'm Jon Radoff. I'm one of the founders. Beamable, we're a gaming infrastructure company, and one of the things we do is we just make it super easy for developers to bring live services, social systems, economic systems into their game without knowing how to. You don't have to know how to code that stuff. And in fact, in our Unreal integration, it's blueprints based. So a lot of drag and drop, similar approach that we've used for Unity.
It's the same interface for my programmer. Your interface in Unreal, it's just a visual scripting tool, right? That's the future of how we create, by the way.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's introduce the studio. We have a little video we can watch, Oscar, to give people a flavor for the work Rick does.
Sure. Give me one moment.
It's a quick teaser for our longer marketing video, which you can get at our YouTube site. But come on, Oscar. Everyone's waiting. There's only 48,000 people waiting for you. No big deal. No pressure.
608 live right now.
So I used to walk around and say, there's only 1 million people waiting for you to finish your job.
I started working in Electronic Arts in 1992, and math is hard, so I don't know how many years that was. Making Nathan's stories into games was paramount. That was the bottom of our pyramid. We wanted to bring his IPs to life.
The worlds that he's created are amazing, and they have to be video games.
I really want to work with people that I've worked with before, people I trust, people that I know are super talented.
Rick reached out to me with what he called a crazy idea, but the idea was to simplify. Let's go back to the roots of small development, small teams, original IP.
Tools were at a maturity level that we could see how small teams could outperform very, very large teams. With Unreal 5, how they're running their scripting with blueprints.
Audio and generative AI 3D, there were tools for everything.
We're going to be able to course correct more quickly. We're going to be able to fail faster and still end up doing what we set out to do. Less money, less time, less people, and AAA quality products.
Would you like to come along for the ride? We're gonna have a lot of fun.
All right, Rick, that was fun. So what goes wrong in a really big game?
When I worked at GameStop, the manager was this guy Bill.
Bill. What goes wrong on big teams? And
Yeah.
what did Aristotle say? Any human organization bigger than two people is fundamentally corrupt. Right? Because people's agendas are different. And on big teams, there's so many constraints, and it all comes down to communication breakdowns. The art director has to explain what they see in words to a creative director, who has to explain to a lead tech artist, who has to explain to the lead engineer, and all those words. And it's the telephone thing. And you, as a producer, you're just chasing around communication breakdowns and making sure everyone's on the same page every day. Right? We moved to Agile and Scrum because that's the best way to control this rapid iteration of communication within humans. Right? So on big teams, you have a team of 54 animators. You better have everything written down in a Jira ticket and go. And really, the big team is a support system for one guy. And I'll make this argument even to anybody at 2K. There's one guy that tuned Red Dead Redemption. One guy. One guy tunes Madden every year. One guy tunes all the. Now they might have three tuners because I'm going to work on the harvesting system and you're going to work on the battle system and I'm going to work on the inventory system and I make those funds on the bigger games. But really, you can do it with one guy, because what's happened now is we just removed all the blockers for that one guy. Meaning Pablo, our lead level designer, when he says, I want a mushroom man, he can go create that in AI and put it in the game, and he stays in the state of flow. And I'm a big believer in the state of flow. If you haven't read the book Flow from the late 70s by a guy named Mihal, and I can't pronounce his last name, but it's the human condition that when you're in a really good movie and you watch the movie and you look up and you're like, what just happened to 4 hours? I have no idea what just happened. That is the state of flow. And when your team is in the state of flow, that's when you're making a game fun. That's when the programmer comes up and says, look what happens. I thought it was a bug with the renderer, but it's actually this. And we can add this as the gameplay. And that's where every single game I've ever made, the fun was found during production, was not written down. It was not like, oh, it's going to be fun to collect all the mushrooms and jump up and hit the coins and collect the coins, and collecting coins will be fun. You never do that. You build it and then you tune it and say, this is a lot of fun. How did you do this, dude? This is amazing. So the faster the team can get into that gameplay loop where everyone's playing the game, the faster you win. That 80-20, we're done with tech, we're playing the game. So every Friday have a build review, and the game's not working, but we're all together playing it. And that's where pretty much 100% of our cool ideas come from, that build review, because that's how humans work, right? So on bigger teams, really hard to do that. You have to have an idea, then push it up and get VP approval. And a lot of times I worked on a lot of IP approval things. It's like, oh, well, Jaguar's not going to let us do that, so take that feature out of the game. And you're never really playing the game with the team and the big teams. You're just making a product at that point. So the advantage of the smaller teams now is 6 of us can say, let's take a left turn, try this out. What happens if water turns into fire? I don't know. What does it look like? Oh man, that looks amazing. Check that out. Right. That takes hours instead of what at Amazon would have been 3 or 4 months. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the thing, is the creativity moves faster on smaller teams.
So here's the question that everybody's probably got top of mind. Crypto's asking, wouldn't generative AI kill the creativity, especially with narrative creations? So maybe respond to that thought first, and then let's dive into like pipelines even look like for your
right.
For your...
The answer is no, but no.
Yeah. Yes, it could. If you just turn your creativity over to the black box, meaning there's 15 great generative AI tools that do narrative stuff. There's some amazing ones you haven't heard of yet that are coming out that are going to blow people's minds. But what they all have in common is they're going to be on the rails that I make. It's my story. It's my characters. It's my characters' feelings on these things. And it's just going to help me write more paragraphs in my state, in my world, and what we call lore is in AI. So if it wasn't that, where I just have to let Notebook LM tell me what my story is going to be, yes, it would absolutely correct. But here's the other thing. The acceleration my narrative guy gets by using these tools to discover where his holes are and where he needs to fix things, 50, 100%. All of a sudden we have near finished narrative design from the narrative writer because he's using the tools to help him create that, right? And that flow, staying in that state of flow. So what happens is once you learn the tools enough and they just become as comfortable as Word or a pen with you, you now staying in that flow to the point where our narrative is our CEO. He's like, oh, I was up till 3 a.m. last night playing with this and this, and I got this, right? That's where you want your team, right? That's not blocking creativity. And I've not seen any team be in the state of flow more than teams using AI. Meaning when you're using AI tools that you know how to use, you are more creative because you're in that state of flow, right?
It's kind of like what vibe coding.
Vibe coding is a perfect example. Yeah.
Flow, right? Yeah.
Right.
So I want to dive into your AI pipelines that you have actually put into practice. Is it easier to talk about them first, or should we take
Why don't you, Oscar, can you roll that? We've made a little video because everybody asks, and we made a video with our technical artist, David Kozlowski, on how we use Invoke. And Invoke is a tool that lets you control your look and create 2D art. And then we take that 2D art and put it through multiple different, there's, I don't know, 12 or 13 different 2D to 3D converters that you can use. And we're trying all of them. Currently, we're using Rodan. We've used Meshi. We use CSM. We try them all, right? Because that's the job right now. So it starts with an intern made a sketch on charcoal pad. You'll see it here in a second. And within 5 hours, we have a boned, rigged character in the game. That's the character art that she came up with. And then David took it to an Invoke, and Invoke is a great tool. It's like Photoshop on steroids meets Substance meets everything you want. You can make depth fields with this, anything. You just very, very nascent tool. And I relate it to Photoshop 1.0. When we had Photoshop 1.0 at EA, I needed engineers to use it because the artist looked at it and said, I can't use Photoshop. I don't know what CMYK values are. Go away, right? But with these tools here, as they're getting better and better, and Evoke, I feel, is on a leading edge because they are leaning into the artists more. But what you're seeing here is taking that sketch and iterating it enough to make it the character that we wanted in the game. Then we'll make a T-pose out of it and then see it in the game. Because of our constraints with Unreal, lighting is done in Unreal, animation is done in Unreal. Rigs are only UE5 rigs with bones and characters. I don't have to spend money on a rig with a character. I get it from the UE5 mannequin, right? You can use all their tech already so that you're not having to spend, I don't know, at Amazon, it was 2.5 months to build a skeleton rig, right? And it cost us so much money to make a character compared to what it is now. We don't need to have special weighted bones because that's going to adapt to the shader value of some game. We're not doing that. We're building games with Unreal and Unreal 5, and then we'll constrain that design team to. And the Lego set for the designers is great. They have more toys than they can play with ever before. So they're not going to say to me, Rick, we really can't use Blueprint because I really need the stochastic renderer on his eyeball luminosity. No, that's not the case, right? We're not really constrained by technologies on this. So the rapid iteration of getting a character that everybody on the team loves is 5 hours at this point. This does not show you taking it into 3D, but yeah, we'll put up another one soon. And we're happy to talk to anybody about how all these tools work. We've been helping a lot of different students.
To 5-6 hours.
Yeah, I mean, the fastest we ever got at Amazon was 3 months. And that was mostly with outsourced people in Southeast Asia. And I would say 80% of our time was because lack of communication. And you didn't understand we wanted the eyeballs green, you made them blue. Right. It's the statement of work becomes the communication vessel, and then it becomes fallible because you just can't write everything down in a statement of work that you send to Southeast Asia. Right.
So a couple of just interesting observations I'll make from that, Rick, and correct me if I'm wrong on any part of this. But first of all, there's been this narrative within game development, at least initially, there was a lot of fear, frankly, around, okay, well, artists are going to be replaced by someone who prompts things into existence. I won't say that isn't possible in the fullness of time. I think AI is going to do amazing things. But what we're seeing here is not an artist being replaced by an AI. We're seeing an artist become supercharged by AI.
Accelerated.
So the work. and probably the scope of the things that they can do is also broadened, right? Because in a normal art pipeline, you got a concept artist, you have people who do 3D modeling, you got people who do animation, you have people who do rigging. So like a whole bunch of different people typically do a lot of these little pieces. The communication gaps that you were referring to step in. And then the Southeast Asia studios, like people talk about artists being replaced. Artists were replaced in the West by Southeast Asia studios a long time ago, right? Because that's the only place a lot of that work, sort of the labor-oriented pieces of this actually, AI, I think, levels the playing field a lot more because a studio like you doesn't have to use those studios. You do it in-house now with your own artists.
And we could afford to take more risks in this democratizing, like I said, that our intern came up with that sketch.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah,
How
and
motivating
risk,
is it? Right? That's so motivating for them.
Risk being a factor of like what budget you have to like get things knocked out. You know, it's like if you ultimately in a world where there are wheelbarrows, I don't think there's an inherent nobility in like carrying like rocks like back and forth. Like the wheelbarrow's there for a reason. I think there's something wrong about using the wheelbarrow to displace, you know, an entire workforce for gains. That's not what this is, especially from the indie perspective.
No. Yeah, indies, we get a pass, right? Because I have no money. And I don't have $21 billion in the bank, and I really don't owe anyone a job. But I do have creative people that will figure out clever ways to get stuff. Like our character artist will be able to make all of our characters by themselves in less than a month, right?
From concept to
one of our unique selling points is like, you're going to see more characters in this game than ever before because it takes us 5 hours to make them. Look how many characters we made. I don't know.
So let's at least dream for a moment, and then we'll come back to reality. Though, like one of the things you said earlier was everybody exists to sort of support the tuning of a game system by like the auteur. You didn't use that word, but
but that's true.
Designer who figures it out, like. You know, in a Sid Meier game, Sid Meier decided everything, and then everybody else just sort of like comes in behind that and builds it, right? Like that's probably the canonical example, but that happens a lot in the industry. The ultimate incarnation of that is like the holodeck, right? Where I just walk into the holodeck and I just speak a whole world into existence. And if I want to sculpt it into shape, I just tell it what to change. And eventually I get the thing that I want, and other people can load program if they want and try it out, modify it. Is that where we end up?
That is. Yep. And the analogy I use is this. So any kid can download a free digital audio workstation, and they can go to the basement with their brother on a guitar, and they can record an old album for free, all their own music, and do it all for free, right? But you have to be Billie Eilish good to get a Grammy, right? And that's a hard thing for humans to understand. Wait a minute, I made a game and nobody likes it. Well, you don't make good games. You have to admit that, right? So you get those auteurs in there that know how to make a good game. That's why I say we have an insanely talented group. We've all made amazing games on our team, right? So giving us the tools, because we know we know what good is, that's our superpower. I can look at something coming out of AI and say, that's actually good enough. Let's put that in the engine. Compared to somebody that's learning how to make games, puts it in and goes, why is it bad? They have to learn that whole thing. So yes, it's time in the saddle for one, but it's also Billie Eilish good. Sorry, the world only makes a few Billie Eilishes a year, right? But now democratization. If it was 1972, we'd never hear Billie Eilish because she was not at Polydor Records or EMI, and there was no agent and all the friction that we had in the 90s. I want to make my game. Well, you have to make my game at EA because we're the only ones that can get a cartridge in. At Walmart, you have to work for a publisher. All that blockage is gone. That's why I say it's the golden age of indies. Anybody can make a game for any platform for free right now, today, for free.
It seems like taste is the thing that ends up becoming a lot more important now because, sure, we may only create a few Billie Eilishes per year or whatever the equivalent of that is within the game industry. You could speak worlds into existence with enough AI, but having good taste and shaping it into something that a lot of other people are going to like that goes beyond just sort of like, I don't know, modding something minimally feels like that's still really hard, having the taste to know when you've shaped it in the right way, that there's a story arc and an immersion and a set of game mechanics that support all of that. That feels like that's still going to be pretty hard,
right.
Not impossible, but pretty hard for generative AI to replace for some time.
Generative AI has no intent, right? Human intent drives AI. I want to make a character and I want to make it look like this. That's all human creativity. It's intent from human. AI doesn't wake up and say, oh, I'm going to make a game to support you and put money in your bank. It just doesn't have any intent. It's a tool, right? On that level. But because now with the access to our communities right away, we can understand our taste and how good it is in our communities. One of the advantages right now that we have is we can make a niche game that sells 500,000 over 4 years, and we could sell it on just Steam with no marketing and just build a community, and we can all eat and we can all pay our mortgages and we can all buy new cars because we have our niche audience to go. That you said it earlier, 3 billion people on Steam, right? If I can find a niche of 500,000 to make this weird game that has weird taste, we're all eating, fine. You should do that. That's where music has gone in the last 15 years. That's where movies already are right now. So we're just following in that trend of, if you've never heard of King Wizard and the Lizard Gizzards or King Lizard and the Wizard Gizzards, go check them out. They have a niche audience on Spotify of millions of people and you never heard of the band, but they're all eating and they all pay their mortgages and they're all happy and they're making a living in music for decades. Right?
Yeah.
Because they found their niche audience, and we have that access now in video gaming. One of the things that we are super bullish on is Discord. We think Discord community is the way that we sell our game. Marketing is broken. Discovery is built. Everybody says the same thing, right, John? Oh, discoverability on Steam. Just give it up then. Don't try to get discoverability on. What else can you do? So if we take the ownership as a development team that we own building our community, it's better for the community too, because as you're seeing with Raph Costner's game and Jem McLean's game, as we start our development, we'll probably kick off in the next month or so. We're going to build our community. So when I finish a character, I can put it up there and say, does this resonate with you guys? Talk to my lead designer right now online and let me know what you think of it. And the community feels ownership. And then that's you're sold. You're in.
Yeah.
Right. If you can build a community of 30,000 people on Discord, you can make a living making games. Can you make the next Grand Theft Auto? No one can. That's a lightning in a bottle event. Don't plan on that. Just go make games you really love to make that you want to play with your community, because your community will audit you and they'll tell you, no, dude, the mushroom guy should not have a gun. Okay, what else do you want, right? You'll find those answers right away in your community.
Ken, before I brought in this whole taste thing, I think he kind of hit on a similar adjacent idea, this idea that in vibe coding, it still requires a mature programmer, at least today. Again, like we don't, like eventually maybe we're dealing with super intelligent AI that just does everything for us. We just play the games, I guess. But that kind of fits with this idea of taste, which is you need people to sort of curate and then judge whether the things that are being produced by the AI are worthy of assembly and composition into the product. And then those people effectively act as tastemakers or curators for other people that want to play that game. Feels like something that like taste is going to be more and more important. The only thing that I might take a little bit of a different approach on is the idea that it's one person. I think there will be these one-person games, but I've been saying for a few years now that I think game making is going to become a lot more like building a rock band.
Absolutely.
You're going to have one person, maybe they're the story, like they're an amazing storyteller. They've got great story ideas. And even if they're curating dialogue from an AI, they like know when it's great and they can tune it exactly that they need. Someone else visually, they're going to know like visually how to execute. They'll have a particular aesthetic they're going for. Again, the Gen AI might produce a lot of that material that they've trained it on the look that they're aiming for, but their taste and their ideas around visualization plays a big role. So I think a really cool dynamic would be indie game development is like 1, 2, 3, 5 people with these really unique taste, artistic contributions, and then you just build great products.
You hit our model on the head, right? The art director does not have the technical skill of the gameplay programmer, or what we called level builders back in the day, or the UE5 guy. She does not have those technical skills, but she can make a Mushroom Man look amazing and send that through Invoke and make a 3D character of it that then he can put in the game and make fun. He's not creating that look. She is, right? On our team. Our CEO is the narrative writer. He's written all the stories. He's doing all the narrative design, right? We have 2 different game programmers. We'll probably have, and I'm pushing back on calling them artists, because what we're asking them to do is integrate art into Unreal 5. And that's a special skill. Now I need to know materials for Unreal 5. I need to know shaders for Unreal 5. I need to know megalights. I need to know Lumen. I need to know all of the tools inside of this real-time rendering engine. And I need that to be my visual acuity, right? That's a different, we call them technical artists, but it could be an artist, but somebody on the team that can manage that technical look. Because guess what? The game programmer that's making the jump fun does not know about megalights, and we don't want him to. We want him or them to just make the game fun, and then we'll come in through on that art pass, to the point where I think we've flipped it on its head, where we're going to set the art look at the end, right? Because it's so easy to, and so fast to get art in the game. We could say, oh, I don't like any of these backgrounds. Let's shift the whole engine and make it all this. And that would take hours instead of months. Right. So, and it gives us more latitude on that side so that you can run these. But you're right. About 6 or 7 heavy hitters, we call it, guys that are expensive. And then our thing on Noctua is we kind of want to engage the next generation and spread the knowledge. One of the things we did really poorly in our industry was teach the kids what to do. Right. So no one at the age of 40 has been through the whole gamut that I've been through from beginning to end. And how do we know? I know hardware all the way to software. You become a specialist, and I spent 15 years at Blizzard, and all I did was rig animations. That's really not knowing gaming, right? But I made games for 15 years. Well, all you did was just do skeletons in 5 different models. That's right. Okay, I get it. But and that we've done a really bad job of educating. So we want to have our bench is basically to be fresh outs, we call them. You graduated college, you know how to use Unreal 5, you can check code in, you're not going to put bad comments in and crash the build. Sit down. And all these pipelines are new. So does somebody with 20 years Maya experience, he's on the same page as a kid coming out of college at that, as far as like the AI tools, as far as knowing what's good and looking at something or having taste, like you said, absolutely. I need those 20, but I'm only gonna have 6 or 7 of those guys on my team of that ilk. And then everybody else. And the teams I started looking at were like 5 or 6 on a team to do the levels. And now I'm down to 4 and maybe even 3, depending on who can ride along the different looks. And you still need to have the art director overlook the entire game to keep the art consistent, to make sure the look feels right. And that's one human, right? That's not the level builder, right? So yes, you're right. You still need those kind of key components, the heavy hitters on the teams, but you're able to move much faster because you're only having 6 people to agree on communication to move fast.
Rick, so just kind of a little bit of a nerd question on your graphics pipeline, since you're using UE5. Is that part of what's enabling the use of this AI pipeline that you put together, things like Lumen and Nanite in UE5? And
right.
I'll invite you to talk a little bit about why, because I think it's interesting for people to understand why innovation at the real core tech level of the 3D engines like Unreal is also opening up the possibility space to AI more readily.
Right. With all the new real-time tools, we can do things that we never did. But we used to have to bake lighting in the backgrounds and make sure the skybox matches the lighting. None of that anymore, right? The really, really interesting thing for us is all the tools they're putting in are real time, meaning the terrain generation system gets created as you see that frame. It's not pre-rendered. It's not created as an art piece that I drop in and then drop lighting on. It's getting rendered as we go, which for us at Noctua Interactive means that could be part of my gameplay loop, and no one's ever seen anything like it. The terrain system can change every frame without any impact on art, without downloading new textures, because it's all procedurally created by the engine. And now we can do really super interesting things in gameplay with the procedural things. That's a hard right turn from going to finish my God of War character in Maya with the right shaders and the right materials and the right lighting, and then go make my engine adopt all of the Maya settings and make it look like it looked in Maya. That's a hard right turn, and it kind of precludes the need for Maya, because now I can just take any model, flat shaded, without any lighting, put it in Unreal, and it'll look better than anything because it's using all the real time. Right. One of our biggest problems was always, well, it looks great in Maya, but in real time, I can't do that many polys. In real time, I can't do this. In real time, I can't do that. So we would spend months taking art from really high end to try to get it tessellated down to make it work in the engine, to make it look just good enough. And we trick things with LO. Now with Unreal 5 and what's happening in Unity, I tell people I have a team of 4,000 working on my engine over at Epic. And they're going to deliver me new features every month, and it's going to incite and delight my team to be like, I can't wait to try the new Lumen build, because look what I can do. Like, if you haven't tried Megalights or seen the Megalight demo with all the pinpoint lights, holy hell, it's crazy, right? And it would have taken us months to figure out how to do that in Maya, and then import it into Unity to get it look halfway that decent, and we would have faked it all. Right. So I think that's one of the most important things on it. Without Unreal 5, you're right, I'm 50% less effective.
So yeah, for the 1,000+ people that are tuning in watching right now, if you haven't been in game development for a while, you might not realize that by and large, a lot of what you see graphically on the screen, which looks like 3D rendered, ray traced kind of experiences, has no relationship to like physics and light of the real world. Like, it's a bag of tricks that we do in shader programming to make things look like that way. And then you have to do all these sort of unnatural acts along the way to get things to even work, including things like baking lights. Baking lights is this thing that you have to do just to make the lighting look right when you actually render it in the game. But it's like lights aren't happening in real time in most games. They're baked in. Whereas ray tracing actually does use sort of a physics-like process to render the way lights look, and Lumen is a sort of a software ray tracing, is kind of the simplest way to think about it, where we start to render that. Rick, a couple of questions I have about that, but I'm going to give you a moment to think about it, because there's something else that I have to announce around our code before the pitchforks and torches come out, and people are wondering what happened to the code today. The code has to come out, but while I do the code, when Lumen and Nanite first came out, there was sort of a lot of people saying, well, cool technology, but it doesn't really like render well enough on the hardware we've got to deliver games on. I'm curious if you can just kind of bring me up to date on that. But first, the code. Okay, the code today, folks, it's soon, SOON. Why is it soon? Because so many things are happening soon for Beamable. On Monday, we've got that alpha node sale. If you are interested in nodes and you need to get whitelisted, don't have a lot of time left, but you probably can if you're active in our community. If you want to help us amplify the message, jump onto X and message Beamable Network. That's the X account for Beamable. Just go ahead and message them, and they'll talk to you about getting whitelisted. It looks like things may go fast on Monday, so we just want to give everyone opportunity to do that. I would take care of it now, but the code soon, SOON. Go over to our Discord /claim. There's Discord again. Discord works for community building, and you can build bots and all the things into it. So /claim soon, and you're going to earn your leaderboard credit. So a lot of other things coming soon, but the alpha node first. All right, tech.
Good work. Keep up the good work, John. I'll tell the boss to give you a raise in like 10 years.
Rick, does this tech work? Can we ship a game on Lumen? And
everything's going to ship on time, right? So the advantage I have with Unreal and Unity, more than Godot, is I have 1,000 people working on that problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the renderer is different on the Switch. So when you make your Unreal 5 build, we'll make a Switch build, and it's going to take care of all that stuff, right? So we get to live in that ultimate world of like, it looks the most amazing on our 5 series NVIDIA, but I know I don't have to worry about it because when I make a build for a lower device, it's going to work, right? Our CTO, Adam Bellin, and I, that was our bane of existence, is you finish the game and then you spend so many months trying to figure out how do I get it working on. Back in the day, it was every different 2D card. Before there was 3D cards, we used to have to ship drivers with our PC games to drive your uninstall the OS and use OROS because we need a different, those days are gone for us. I don't need to spend all that energy and collateral and resources on making sure it's going to be compatible, because again, it's Unreal 5 fixes all that for us. So yes, there's a risk of like, yeah, well, I have an old AMD card that doesn't, yeah, well, you're not going to be able to see the full visuality of our game, but if you upgrade your video card, you will, right? And the PS3 is going to look different than the PS4 is going to look but all the engine's going to handle 99% of that. There might be some artifacting, but you're right. Visual acuity matters on how much money came out of your pocket to the device in your hand.
Have you looked at Web GPU? I'm just curious your view on that and its readiness. Just speaking of technology, before we get to this 2 months question, which I think is really.
I think the future of what Web GPU is what my friend Royal O'Brien is working on. It's called Expansia.
Okay.
What it allows me to do is not have to distribute my game, because now you can instantly jump in to my game session and see it in 4K with no latency because of Web GPU technologies and how he's implementing that. So I think what happens in Web GPU land is it eliminates the need of me downloading 27 gigabytes of a game and waiting for it to play. I just instantly play games at that point. Yes, there's more server costs, but there's ways around that. If you look at the amount of data you actually used in Diablo 4 compared to what you downloaded off you probably used less than a gigabyte of data to finish the entire game, and you downloaded 27 gigabytes.
Interesting.
Right. And that bandwidth is going to matter. So there's a couple of other interesting, like on live, if you remember that technology, where instant play or the Luna, there's other ones that you're only paying for the egress, and that's the big cost in servers, as you know, for what that user is using. So if your user comes on board and plays one level and leaves, you're only paying for that egress. If the user has to download the entire 27 gigabytes and only plays 2 levels, you still pay for that egress of 27 gigabytes. Right. So that technology is going to get fixed out. But like I said, we don't have to fix those technology problems anymore. We're just going to lead. And there's so many different companies trying to figure it out in different ways. Am I going to build a back end? No, I'm going to use Beamable, of course. Why wouldn't I? Right. You have a team of how many people working on it that I don't have to have on my studio. When we were at Glue, we had to prop up everything on our own. There was no auth for us to get. We had to write that shit ourselves. It was terrible.
Yeah.
Like now I just
Disruptor Beam. I mean, that's what
Disruptor Beam. That's why we were there. We ended up buying some other weird company that didn't help us out. But anyway, that's old news.
So Suman has a question. By the way, everybody, this is why it's live, so you can ask questions. Rick's a legend here. He knows what he's talking about. I think you can tell based on the conversation. The guy knows what the heck he's talking about all aspects of game industry, art pipelines, use of AI. So great opportunity here for you to learn something today. Suman is asking how UI and UX are, I think what he's saying is how is it changing in vibe coding? Just so first of all, just share my own brief experience UI UX. Like I dread and this is nothing against the people who programmed and did UI UX. They did great work for us at Disruptor. They're some of the most talented people that I worked with, frankly, and they had good ideas on even how to shape gameplay, which I think is a good hallmark of a UX person, is also how does it fit with the whole system of the game and shapes the experience. But I dreaded UI and UX changes because like every time we needed to, it's like throwing up a different dialogue box to capture a different set of information. It's like all the data endpoints have to be figured out. And yes, the UI systems of everything are kind of broken. Like you have to kind of hand code UI and UX a lot of the time and build off these primitives that aren't that easy to change. And it was always a super pain. So if ever there was a great use case for vibe coding, for goodness gracious, I want to be able to sit down in front of my game engine and just prompt a different UI and have it layer it in. And because UI is a huge surprisingly hard thing to manage.
It's 90% of the experience of the game.
Yeah.
Because you're always in the interface. So you always see the UI, right? But the reality is, do I need UI to be one of my heavy hitters on my team? Meaning, is it one of my 7 principles? Not really. With guys like, I don't know if you know Jason Sklar and UX is Fine. Those guys come in 2 weeks and everything's fixed and everything's fine, right? UX is fine, right? We got to work together at Microsoft back in the day, but it's that kind of thinking. It's like, I'm going to save that time for that expert to come in and say, oh, you telling me the 30 things need to change. But as far as vibe coding, making it work in the engine, I could see that maybe doing things. What we do is there's a huge repository of all the UIs of every video game in the world. If you haven't found that, go search it out. And every UI for every game is in there, right? And we use that as a LoRa. We said that we like these 5 UIs. And then we go into Invoke and we like, make my UI with these backgrounds and this guidance of this color set and everything. And we have a mock-up of what the UI will look like. As far as functionality and form and flow, you kind of need to test that. That's why you have communities, right? That's why you have teams like UX is Fine to come in and make that happen. They're doubling down on AI in their company too, so that they can get more information more quickly about how to fix your UX and your UI to reduce the time that they're going to need to come and fix things. So I look at that stuff. I look at like localization and testing. It's like, we're not going to put that on our team. We're going to job that out. And it just takes less time. It takes minutes now instead of weeks, right? So it becomes no risk. At the end of the project, you line it up and it's like, let's have a UX pass here and let's see what we get. We got 35 bugs. Talk to the community about the bugs. Do you guys really care about this? What do you guys care about? And then let them be the mediator of that. But a broken UI makes it your game can never be fun, right?
So Crypto's got a question here. What do you think the primary bottleneck is for creating next generation experience games? In the past, it used to be hardware, but now we can see the industry is evolving too fast and it won't be the issue. I guess one has to define what even we mean by a next generation.
Yeah.
For me, a next generation game is show me a game experience with some gameplay that I haven't really encountered before.
Right.
The first time I sat down and played a MOBA, that was a new game experience.
Right.
It wasn't even built as a built from the ground up game. Dota was built
Right.
as a mod to an existing game. So there's a great use case in just give people creative tools and they figure out how to bring the new gameplay. But to me, that's the next gen experience. It's not like better graphics, more ray tracing. Like those things are going to happen because the engine companies, it's the gameplay.
Yeah, and we've passed the race of hardware, right? So the race to better PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, every time they came out with a new piece of hardware drove the industry. The upside of what Xbox 360 was going to be, the unfettered optimism of every studio that's going to be like, we're going to be able to do all these things with the Xbox 360. It was that new silicon that we had to address drove a lot of things. Well, it also on my team, I need all new rendering guys. I need a multi-threading GPU guy for the first time. I need a vector unit guy all of a sudden because all this hardware, going back to that 80% of our resources were spent making the content thing. Now that we're just submitting to Unreal 5, let them handle how we talk to bare metal, right? We've opened up more creativity forever. So I agree with you, John. The next generation experience is not graphical. It's not because I have AR, VR glasses. Maybe there will be some cool hook in some AR game that everybody needs to get, but I don't know. It's that hook. What we're doing, I think, is how we find that next generation thing. It's not planned on paper. It's not written down in a pitch deck and pitched to investors to be like, once I get this, then everybody, how many pitches have you seen to be like, oh, we're going to have one common character so we can bounce it between everything. And I can take it from TikTok and then I can take it on my YouTube and it'll be one character from Fortnite. It's like, that's not what's going to drive it. What's going to drive it is, oh my God, somebody put a mini golf game in Fortnite. That's amazing. Right. And they used all the tools that were there. There was nothing especially technical about it. And that's what I'm saying is what we're doing with real-time stuff in Unreal will be some of the first time anybody has seen that content, right? It's not like we have special access to things or we're ahead of the curve on things. It's just that because we're now in Unreal 5, our game is going to ship a lot earlier than a lot of big publishers because it's not going to take us 2 years to make. The first time people see that Lumen is procedurally attached by the lighting system, and when you step on the lily pad, it's going to make these 5 things happen. That what do they call it in slot machines? That endorphin rush that you get out of that is why it's what makes games fun, right? And we'll find, and that's a discovery thing. So all these tools and where we're going to find the next experience games is exactly what we're doing. Let's unblock the creators and let them do whatever crazy stuff, like some of the stuff Pablo's doing with the procedural. It's crazy. I'm like, I didn't know Niagara could do that. And so now the VFX is attached to the lighting, is attached to the terrain system, is attached to the gameplay loop. Wow. How did you, right? That kind of is where the next generation experience will come from.
Mm-hmm.
So Grinders were mentioning we have a bot on the leaderboard. Sorry, Grinder. We know that there are people botting us. I fought bots my whole life with a free-to-play game studio. Now I get to fight bots again, trying to create our questing leaderboard. It's the
Everything
nature.
Comes full circle.
We ban them when we can find them. We block VPNs. We do Sybil detection on wallets. We're doing all kinds of stuff to figure out to prevent people from gaming the system. If you know specifically who or what they're doing, we certainly appreciate you letting Beamable know in a DM. Just shoot Beamable Network a message, and we'll definitely look into it, because we, believe me, the only people who dislike those bots more than you are us, because those are the people that undermine the community. So we want to get them out of there. But we've been talking about bots for good a little bit for AI here. Rick, just sort of maybe in the closing couple of minutes, you've been doing so much with AI. You've obviously been looking at a lot of these technologies. There's kind of a little bit of a period there where everyone was getting excited about AI driven NPCs and things in games, like, hey, we're going to play Baldur's Gate 3, but now every character comes to life and we have a relationship with them for time, and they give us new quests that we had never imagined before. What are your thoughts on that? And Baldur's Gate 3, it's sort of a straw man. I'm not saying
right. I get you. No, but I see that. I have friends working on tools. It depends on how fun that's going to be.
Yeah.
Right. And really, until you put it together and let me play it, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? So some of them will be interesting, but our feeling is handing over things, like I said earlier, to a black box is going to be it's going to handle all the dialogue between your players, and that we're more a narrative kind of game. Maybe if it's part of the gameplay loop, can you get the AI to say the word Deep Purple? Okay, right. I don't know, right? Maybe that's part of the gameplay loop on that. But
isn't there like a difference? And I think something that people need to think about is when you say an AI process is like steering a conversation versus we used AI to generate 500, conversation branching. So it's like AI is still in the loop, but AI doesn't have to be we don't know what the hell Darth Vader is going to say in Fortnite. Right. It's that we're using AI to augment our abilities to effectively generate a bunch of content that is actually logical in that node path. It makes sense logically, and it makes sense because you can still go back and be like, this kind of sucked. Let me erase these 30 different branches. Humans are still in the loop.
Right. And that's, we'll get there. Someone will find one of those tools and they'll put it in the engine and have fun and play with it. One of the things that happened to us in the last few months, there's an organization called Immerse Group. They run trade shows and they run the AR/VR world, and they're a big organization. They're starting up a new association called the Applied AI Association, and it's only teams that are using AI. And most of the people in the association now are, of course, from military and medical, and then a lot in educational. You'll be surprised how many schools are going to double down and use AI because it's an effective teaching tool. Well, they asked Nathan and I to head up the committee for the Applied AI Association for gaming and entertainment. So we're going to launch that next month. And executive overview, it's just going to be a Discord server where we all share our workflows and tell you how we're doing things, because there's plenty of theoretical stuff. You can go up on YouTube and see 500 videos on how you can use this. Until I see it as a workflow for somebody else, it's hard for me to relate. So we're just going to have people that are already using AI on our Discord. And the Applied AI Association is good for us because it's going to keep us in touch with all of the legal things that are happening across all of the sectors. It's going to show us tools from other sectors that we might be able to use. And so we're going to put some effort into that this year. I think we'll have a nice, healthy community like we did with the IDGA in the beginning. AI frees the ability for indies to really deliver AAA quality. Democratizing things.
We're letting smaller teams dream big is sort of the opportunity here. That's the Beamable vision as well, right? It's like, if you want to make a live services game, it's become onerously hard from a tech and live ops standpoint to do that. So we just wanted to put that power in everyone's hands. AI can also help that small team deliver a lot more capability, a lot more content. So I want us to get to that Rock Band point where it's the Rock Band size team can pump out an amazing, huge, fun game that changes game experience for everybody. Rick, this has been an amazing conversation.
Yeah, it went so fast. I was in the flow, dude.
I could talk to you for hours. We could continue this flow forever and ever. But Rick, I'll give you the last word here. What should people know that you didn't tell them about Noctua already, and where can they find you to learn more about the work you're doing?
Oh, okay. Yeah, we have a website, of course. We're starting to do our socials. We'll probably launch our community in the next couple of months, so stay tuned there. NoctuaInteractive.com. Thank you, Oscar, for putting it there. Learn anything there. That you could reach out to us on our YouTube channel. We have a super interesting 14-minute long origin story of the company that people might want to find. We're in the middle of fundraising in the worst time in human history for fundraising. So that's been a lot of fun, but we've been successful so far, and we're still alive, and we're building games. And we just want to make games that excite and delight humans, right? If we keep our focus on bringing Nathan's stories to life, and we think those stories are exciting, then that's how we win. So.
Awesome. Okay, and Crypto with the final world here saying we need Rick for another episode. So
I'm happy to do it anytime you want.
Welcome back anytime. We would love to have you. This has been a great conversation. Everybody, thanks for tuning in today. We couldn't do this without you. We're ending at nearly 1,500 people live, so people were super interested in what you had to say, Rick.
Great.
Come back next time, be part of these conversations, and until then, enjoy your games, everybody, and love game development too.
All right. Thank you.